Hi, my name is Rebecca Hutton. I have the great privilege of serving as President and CEO of Leadership Indianapolis, as well as the Program Director for the Stanley K. Lacey Executive Leadership Series, which many of you probably know a little bit better as SKL. To say that we are living in unique times right now is probably a little bit of an understatement. At Leadership Indianapolis, we are trying to do our part to help our community through this pandemic, which for us means taking the advice of our local, state, and national leaders who are encouraging social distancing. Unfortunately, that means that over the next few weeks, I'm not going to be able to speak in some of the places that I was scheduled to speak, and I'm also not going to be able to meet with folks who maybe had questions about SKL as easily. So we wanted to go ahead and take a few minutes using this video to provide a brief overview of the program, of the application process, and hopefully address some of the common questions that we receive. Of course, if you have additional questions after you're seeing this, you're welcome to email me, and I will certainly answer those questions as well, but hopefully this will be helpful to you. So let's go ahead and jump in. This year, we are accepting applications for SKL Class 45. Back in 1976, the Lacey family began the SKL series as a way of honoring Stanley K. Lacey, who was a young professional and community leader who was killed prematurely in a car accident. The Lacey family wanted to honor him by supporting and encouraging other young professionals who contribute to our city. So what is SKL? The purpose of SKL is to expand the ranks of community leadership by providing a broad range of emerging leaders with the knowledge and incentive to confront the needs of our community. It's an education and community issues. And that's really important to understand. This program is focused on understanding issues in our community. It's not a strict skill development program. So you're not going to be learning how to read bank statements. It's not focused on that skill development. You will gain skills along the way, but it really is an education on community issues, ways that you can get involved, an opportunity to gain knowledge and resources to become powerful agents of change in our community. Through SKL, you will explore those issues with current leaders who are working to address the issues in our city. You'll discover ways to get involved, and you'll develop positive and meaningful relationships with your fellow class members and class moderator. Who is SKL designed for? It's designed for emerging leaders who already have a history of community involvement in a leadership capacity, who hold a position of leadership in their organizations, who hold a position that offers the ability for them to continue to affect change and influence what's happening. Now, when you look at the list of alumni of our program over the years, you will see that that doesn't mean always that it's the person with the biggest title from the biggest company. We understand that leadership looks a lot of different ways and takes a lot of different forms, so please don't be intimidated by that description and thinking that means it's only for CEOs. That's not the case. It's designed for emerging leaders who have an interest in and knowledge of community issues and needs, and that's really important. This is not a Indianapolis 101 class. We are going to expect that you are involved in the community and the issues already enough to have a basic understanding of the city and what's happening in the city so that we can really dig deeper into those conversations. Applicants must be between the ages of 25 and 45 at the time the application is due. You have to live in the greater Indianapolis area for at least 3 years and not be likely to move. It's important to know that that doesn't have to be the most recent 3 years. So for example, if you have lived in the greater Indianapolis area and your job transferred you 2 years ago and then you came back a year ago, you're still eligible to apply as long as cumulatively you have lived in greater Indianapolis area for at least 3 years. And again, the point of that really is to make sure that the class members come into the class with an existing knowledge of the city and the issues that we're facing. And we want our emerging leaders to want to get more involved. So if you're at a time where you're thinking like, I already have too much on my plate, I'm gonna start scaling back, this may not be a good time for you to apply for SKL. We are looking for people who are in a space where they are ready to dig deeper, step up, invest more. So how does SKL work? The SKL series runs from September to June each year, with orientation in September. In September, we also have a 2-day opening retreat, which takes place out of town. And then we wrap up the class year in June with a 2-day closing retreat, which takes place out of town. The orientation of both retreats are mandatory in full. So you'll want to make sure you look at the application, which includes the dates for all of these classes and events, and make sure that you hold them on your calendar now. In the months between the retreats, which are October through May, we will explore a different topic each month. The class will meet for 1 day each month, and it's a full day. So we start the class day at 7:45 a.m. and generally go to close to 5 p.m. We do ask that you hold till 5 p.m. on your calendar. The topics each year vary, but they are generally topics like education, public safety, economic development. Each year we also have a different moderator, and that's a seasoned community leader who helps guide the class, guide the discussions, and really shape the curriculum. We'll announce the moderator at the same time that we announce the class, so no, we cannot share who the moderator is for the class that you're applying to. You should also count on some time outside of class, which will range from 5 to 15 hours per month. We will send materials ahead of each class day for you to read. We'll ask for you to meet up with class members outside of class. We try not to be too burdensome on your schedule because we know everybody's busy, but you should make sure that you are aware that there is some outside of class time required. So applying to SKL, you can download the application at leadershipindianapolis.com. All the directions for the application are in that packet, which you can download. Again, I would really encourage you to review that schedule. We say it's a tentative schedule because it is subject to change, but very rarely does, and we try to make sure that we stick to that as much as possible. The biggest piece of advice that I can tell you about the application is to mind the details. Pay attention to the details. This is a very competitive process, and it's very important that you read the details in the directions, that you follow them. There are no trick questions, so if you're confused by something, shoot me an email and I'm happy to answer that question. But pay attention to the number of copies that you are supposed to submit. Pay attention to the fact that you are not supposed to disclose your name in the application narrative. Really pay attention to those details. Don't rush it. This is not the kind of application that you can complete at the last minute, and if you do, it shows, and the selection committee will see that. So give yourself some time to work on it and think through it, and ask your cabinet to review your application. What we mean by that is find some people that you trust. I highly encourage you to reach out to somebody who's gone through the program and has experience and knows what it's going to be like. Let them look at your application. Ask them for honest feedback. And receive the honest feedback that they give you so that you can strengthen your application. Also think about somebody that you work with, that you trust, that can read through and be honest with you about if you're maybe not giving yourself as much credit as you should for some of the work that you've done. And then also I encourage you to have somebody who doesn't work with you to review the application so that they can see and let you know if you're using too much professional jargon, which makes it difficult for somebody who's not working in your industry to understand the examples that you're using. So just make sure that you have a few people that you trust who have different levels of familiarity with your professional and community leadership, and ask them for honest feedback. You'll notice that references are required to sign the form, but we don't ask or accept reference letters. So please do not include reference letters. They will not be passed on to the selection committee. Very important to note that part 2 of the application, please do not include identifying information. That means do not disclose your name, your employer's name, or the name of past employers. And the reason that we say that is because this is a blind application process. We try to make it as fair as possible for everybody who is applying to have a chance to get into the class. It's also important for you to know that we take that seriously enough that if you are using your name and disclosing that information in the narrative, that your application will be disqualified for not following the directions. Be distinctive and tell us about you. Often people will talk about the projects they're involved in, the things that their teams have done, It's also important for you to take that extra step and talk about you individually, because your team is not going to be in the class, you are individually. And so the better sense that the selection committee has of who you are, what you bring to the conversation, the easier it's going to be for them to imagine you in that class. So really make sure that you provide those details. This is not the time to be overly humble. Tell us all the great things you're doing. We want to know. Make sure you pay attention to the deadline. Late applications are not accepted. So a little bit more about the selection process. There are 25 class members selected each year. There will not be more than one person selected from the same company. We really try to make sure that we have a variety of experiences and perspectives in the class. It's a highly competitive process. Generally, 1 out of every 3 to 4 applicants is selected. And it's not uncommon for selected class members to have applied numerous times. So it's also a good time for me to tell you that if you don't get into the class, don't be too discouraged. It is competitive. It does not mean that you are that you won't ever get into an SKL class. It just means maybe this wasn't the right class for you. So the first round of scoring is anonymous. Like I said, the selection committee will read through your applications without knowing your identifying information, and they'll score your applications. We'll then create rankings based on those scores, and then for round 2, we'll match the names with the applications and other identifying information. And that way we can ensure that we have a class that really does reflect the community. And by that we mean diversity in profession, gender, race, culture, geography, lived experience. We really try to make sure that the perspectives in the conversation are as diverse as possible, because that is what creates the richness in the discussions and creates the kinds of relationships that will help us as a city better address issues that we face. The program tuition is $1,200. We will send out an invoice once you've been selected into the program. Scholarships are available. Make sure you read through the instructions to see those details. Please know that if that tuition seems overwhelming to you, don't let that stop you from applying. Also make sure that you talk to your employer. A lot of employers will pay the tuition. Sometimes mentors will help pay that tuition. If you need to pay that yourself and it's burdensome, again, do not let that stop you from applying. We can make sure that we work that out with you. We don't want cost to prevent anybody from participating in the class if you've been selected. All the applicants will be notified by mid-July as to whether or not they've been selected for the class. So again, make sure that you submit the application by the deadline. Download the application and instructions at leadershipindianapolis.com and reach out to me if you have any specific questions. There's no advantage to talking to me personally or sending me your resume. None of those things help. I don't decide who gets into the class. I simply help the selection committee through the process. So if you have a specific question about the application, feel free to reach out to me. If you go through the application and after watching this video you decide that you're maybe not ready for SKL just yet, but want to continue developing as a community leader, consider looking at some of our other programs at Leadership Indianapolis. We have Opportunity Indianapolis, which is a 2-day program, and that's a great way to learn about a lot of different issues in just a few days. We have another program called LEAD, and that program really is developed on focused on developing leadership skills. So you will go through a process of figuring out what's your why, thinking about what motivates you, what is a good match for you in your community leadership. You'll learn how to do a stakeholder analysis so that you can more effectively and more collaboratively lead in the community and in your work. So Opportunity Indianapolis is about issues, LEAD is about skill development. So think about those if you feel like SKL may not be the right fit just yet. So that's a brief overview of the SKL series and the application process. I hope it's helpful to you and answers some questions. If you still have specific questions about the application, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to answer as best as I can. I look forward to reading your applications, and thanks for everything that you are doing to make Indianapolis stronger and better.